You have tuned in to Seattle Connected, the show that connects you with entrepreneurs, business people, movers and shakers in our community, letting you know who they are before they become household names, which we know they soon will be. Today with me is a doctor like no other. She's here to take care of you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and you can pass it on to others like a cold, but in a good way. She's all about healing our community, and she's out there doing so much more. So you have to give her flowers now. Who wants to smell them when they're dead? Please welcome my guest, Dr. Katrina Sanford. Hello.
Peace and blessings.
Hey,
Thank you for having me. You're so funny.
Hey, how was the intro? Come on. Was it all right?
It was good. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you
good.
for having me.
Yeah. Man, I like the beads. Those are fire.
Thank you.
Yeah, I need some.
Actually, this is part of a spiritual tradition, Ifa, African spiritual tradition that I'm a part of. And the beads represent different deities or Orisha. And, they protect me and keep me safe.
Nice. I like that. That's cool, and I like it has a meaning behind it too. So that's dope.
Right
so
on. Thank you.
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Okay.
So, are you a Seattle native or Washington native, or you from?
I'm not actually, but I have been here just under a decade, off and on. I'm actually from Virginia, so I'm from the South, and moved out here for internship with one of my mentors, Laura Brown. She's a feminist psychologist, and I came out here to do some work and support folks who couldn't afford therapy on my internship. And I got out here, and it was cool, and I had a good professional network. And, although the Black community is small out here, it needs just as much help as anywhere like Atlanta that has a large population of Black folks. And I love the folks here. I love the beauty, so I decided to stay.
Yeah, so this is home?
It's home.
After a decade?
It's been home for a bit, yeah.
I like that. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so can you go into detail about what herbal healing is? And what's the misconceptions that people usually have when they hear the term herbal healing?
Yeah, I think some folks get a little afraid. I think we've been taught to be afraid of herbs and what they can do to support our body, and not just afraid of them, but this idea that herbs actually can't help, that it's just a plant, which is so sad because, our earth has given us all things that we need to be able to support our lives. Our ancestors are here. We're able to stay here, and we're able to be here because they were able to figure out how to use the earth to their advantage to support their healing. So it makes me sad when I hear that people are a little iffy on herbs, not to mention that pharmaceuticals that people are out here taking all the time, they're derived from plants.
Right.
So we're already doing the plant thing, but when you take it from the original source, it is safer and healthier for you.
Yeah.
And herbal healing is the bomb. I mean, it's easier. Your body can handle it better. If we think about the pharmaceuticals we be taking, even ibuprofen, our liver's not a fan of it. So for our liver and our kidneys to be able to detox our bodies from that, it takes a lot of work and it's hard.
Right.
But our bodies don't need to do the same thing with herbs because there are things that we naturally need anyway, that if we figure out the right combination, we'll be popping. And so, I'm not going to say go out here and just grab some plants and just start playing with them. Don't do all that. Check in with somebody or do your own research. That's how I got started. I was like, I want to figure out herbs, and I want to be healthier. And I want to help my family be healthier. And actually, I started really looking into herbs because I wanted to see how I could support my clients who were on medications for their mental health and titrating off of those and having something more natural. Because it's not natural to me to take Prozac for 20 years. That means it's not doing its job. And herbs are supposed to help support us in getting back to a better place where we don't necessarily need them like people seem to need pharmaceutical drugs. And so I just grabbed a book, started doing some research, trying out herbs, went to an apothecary, grabbed some herbs, started playing with them, drinking them, making tinctures, doing all sorts of stuff. And here I am years later, able to support my family and friends who were dealing with cancer, diabetes, and just regular body pains and mental health issues, supporting them with, here, try this herb, use this tincture. And it works, folks. It really does.
Yeah, man. So how long have you been into, I guess, not just advocating for it, but using, I guess you would say, the herbs and the different sort of healing that's not what you would find on your, drugstore shelves? So how long have you been?
Yeah. I say probably just under a decade. I think coming here to Seattle and connecting with the community and with the earth here and just being more connected to nature and starting to move into more of my spiritual growth, it started getting me moving towards herbs. And then as I started looking more into my own ancestry, my own African ancestry, and looking into how my ancestors were able to support themselves. And I'm not just talking my ancestors that were here in America, but my ancestors in Africa, seeing how they did it, how they healed, and seeing that herbs were a big part of that. I was like, I need to look into that. I want to heal in the ways that they did, because they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you noticed a change, or did you first notice a change those first couple years when you started this journey? Like physically, did you feel different? How was your energy? Was it a difference in your mental? Like, what was the change, or what was the process like?
Yeah, I think that it's holistic. And so at that time, I was working on supporting my body by exercising. I was working on supporting my spirit by connecting with more African-centered ways of being spiritual. And I was also really working on getting my head straight. So the herbs help support all those other things I was doing. And the one thing that I really initially started working really hard on with the herbs was my sleep, because I really struggle with my sleep. And so I started taking ashwagandha, which is an herb that's super supportive of resetting our cortisol levels, because our cortisol is a stress hormone, and that stuff is popping because we got 9 to 5 work and we got emails and stuff. And I was like, nah, I need to check this. So I started working with the ashwagandha, and I started noticing my sleep getting better, especially if I stayed with it consistently. And then my mood, what things could I take for my mood on a daily basis? And I started getting into maca, which is this amazing root that, for the most part comes from Peru, and it helps with emotional regulation, and it helps with folks. I'm a sex therapist, so I was looking into it like with folks who are dealing with issues with desire or erectile dysfunction or things of that nature. Like this herb just helps with all of these things, and I just started taking them myself and making tinctures, and I started feeling better each day, each month, each year. I was just healthier, and I had to go to the doctor less because I didn't need as much support. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is where it's at.
Yeah. I know you also deal with those who are affected by different types of trauma.
I do, yep.
And I know we all go through different sorts of trauma, and what's amazing is a lot of times we don't know until later on. We could just be used to something for years and years and years, and that could have changed the way you think about different things, the way you approach things, or not knowing it'll have like a lasting effect. And then you're like, oh, I just thought I was going through something, or I was just being weird, or my family said, what's wrong with you? You just need to perk up. So what type of trauma do you deal with your patients, and what is the most common, and, just the background on that?
Yeah. Well, I started studying trauma before it became popular. I just was like you said, everybody's dealing with something, regardless of what that thing is. We're all affected in some way or another by some kind of trauma that we as people put onto each other, that systems of oppression put onto us. And so a lot of my focus was initially starting with sexual trauma and how to support you know, especially women, because women tend to be the ones who deal with a lot of sexual trauma, but also men. You know, I'm not going to say I haven't worked with plenty of men who have dealt with it, because as people, we just harm each other. And for some reason, we think sexually is the way to do it, you know, taking control of someone else. So, you know, sexual trauma that people are dealing with, I've been focusing in on that for a large part of my career. But as I started, you know, getting more blackety black, if you will, and connecting with my ancestors and such, and paying more attention to the way that oppression pops up in our society, I started focusing a lot more on racial trauma and how Black folks and people of color are dealing with the oppression that pops up in our society. And I'll tell you, you know, the racial trauma, people are really going through it. And like you said, don't even realize that their bodies are responding to trauma. Because trauma, it's not just like, oh, you know, my body is responding. It literally is a mind thing. It's a spirit thing. And so I think that's the thing we're missing when we're trying to support people with trauma, is making sure they're getting care holistically, as opposed to just focusing in on the symptoms. You know, I sweat or I dissociate or whatever. Those are symptoms of the problem, but what's at the root, and how do we support the root so that the rest of the plant, the rest of the tree is doing well?
I had went through a pretty trying time, I would say, after the pandemic and just within the last 18 months. And I noticed that it was affecting my sleep. Like, I'm the kind of person that I don't have a lot of dreams. You know, some people just have these, you know, really eccentric dreams and everything. And, you know, I'm the kind of person, something really has to be heavy on my mind for me to dream. And it might not even be about, you know, what I'm going through, but I noticed that I was starting to have dreams every single night, and I was just trying to make sense of it. And so when I talked to my therapist, and she basically broke down, like, you're going through this trauma, you know, that wasn't even right now. It was just different events that were happening in the world, and as well as my personal life, kind of tied into trauma that I didn't know I'd been dealing with for, you know, 15, 20 years. So it was just like, wow, you know, it kind of ties together like a puzzle, which was, you know, alarming. But I think just me having a better understanding is knowing that it is normal, you know, and just finding out that there's multiple ways to go about receiving help and healing, you know, and it doesn't just have to be like we were saying, oh, you just go to the, you know, the drugstore and take this because there was a commercial. You know, there's different things you can do. So I'm glad you're able to show people that there's other options.
Yeah. And I think my background in trauma and just seeing everything that was popping with Black folks having to deal with racism and you know, Black Lives Matter stuff happening, you know, all of that put together sort of led myself and two other amazing ladies in my life, Aisha Keita and Sadiqa Iman, and we created our nonprofit Nile's Edge Healing Arts, and it's a collective of healers. So we take all the African-centered modalities of healing, mind, body, and spirit, and we gather the healers, the Black healers in Seattle, and help support the community. Like, here's the folks who do Reiki. Here's the people who are doing acupuncture that look like you. And in addition, we throw events. So we have an event coming up in December 12th at Langston Hughes Performing Arts Center, where it's basically just a wind down. It's a winter wind down, and it's to celebrate the winter solstice. But also it's to support the community in coming out and getting some care. So you come get your acupuncture, you come sit in front of a phototherapy light for 15 minutes, you get some music, we dance, we drum, you know, the way that our ancestors healed, coming together in community. It was the trauma background and seeing how many folks were really suffering, especially through COVID, that pushed us to be able to do this work a little bit more, so that people had the resources, they had the space, and they knew the folks who were doing the work that they needed for their bodies. Yeah.
And I think that's cool that you touched on earlier several things from the ancestral healing, and you had mentioned about sex therapy. So I'm gonna ask some questions.
Ahead,
It's always like, woo. So people at home, if you have children in the room, you might want to tell them to leave or pause this right now. Pause. Anyway, all right. So sex therapy. Now, are most of the people that you work with, is it solely just couples? Is it, I'm single or I have issues, being intimate when I am with someone, or what kind of therapy do you usually tend to not just provide, but what are the most common things that people would see you about as far as for sex therapy?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because people would come in not really knowing they needed support with sex, and then as we talk, we find that there's some areas that maybe they could, adjust or be better in their lives. And most of the time, I actually talk a lot with individuals about sex, but when couples come in, inevitably we talk about that because that's an issue that comes up for all couples. And it's not that all couples are having like a terrible sex life, but maybe, from past trauma or, past experiences, they've had a difficult time being able to communicate with their partner about what they want and what they need. And so, I have conversations like that. But I think some of the more popular topics that I tend to talk about is really people trying to find the space to be comfortable with themselves as a sexual being. Because we are in this society that is, Puritan based, very conservative, and we don't really teach about sex. So we don't know what's going on when we get older, and now we're engaging in sex, and people are shamed and feel guilty about being sexual beings. So a lot of my work is actually that work, that emotional work of like, it's okay, you like what you like is cool as long as you're not hurting anybody else and you're communicating. It is what it is. Sexuality is fluid and people like different things, and it's okay to explore and be with other people. But, I've definitely also had conversations about, erectile dysfunction and helping some gentlemen, get their stuff together in a way that feels good for them. And that's when I can also pull out my herbal game and be like, try this, brother. Let's see how this works,
Yeah.
So people get a little hesitant, but once we step into that conversation, you'd be surprised about how people open up and some of the things they're dealing with sexually.
Yeah. I've heard from different friends and acquaintances that sex is one of those things that they were kind of scared to talk about because their parents were kind of scared to talk about it.
There you go.
So then they grew up thinking it was almost a shameful thing, and it made them like so timid to the point where it was hard for them to break out of it when they were adult and they were in relationships, because they were just like kind of scared of the unknown or thinking everything was, something to be, not realizing that it was a normal emotion. It was okay to have these thoughts and desires. And like you said, as long as you're not hurting anybody and, you have that communication of, what you're into, what you're not into. It's amazing. And going into my next question, just what you saying about keeping the lines of communication open. So polyamory, is that how you pronounce it? All right, make sure. Hey,
yep.
Right in front of the doctor. I know in past that was, well, I'll let you go ahead and break down the definition.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, polyamory, poly, many, amory, loves, many loves. And we all have many loves, whether it's platonic, family, romantic. The focus for polyamory tends to be on the romantic love, but all of us, whether we practice polyamory or not, have many loves in our lives. Okay.
Now with that, I think before it was somewhat taboo to say, hey, I'm into multiple partners, or, I'm even living with somebody and I'm not married. And I think things have been more, I guess a little bit more relaxed, but there's still, some kind of, I don't know, because people are worried what other people will think. This doesn't, Bob and Jane doesn't do this, so maybe I shouldn't, because I'll be looked at shameful because majority of the people aren't doing this or that or the third or whatever. Do you think that it's possible to have a successful, healthy relationship if you are into those type of things. Like if you're someone who says, hey, I love my spouse, but romantically I would like to be involved with several people or bring someone into our relationship.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it depends on what you think successful is. To me, a successful relationship is one that's mostly healthy. There's honesty and communication. So if we're talking about that as success, then I absolutely think that it's possible to have successful poly relationships. I personally have been poly for over a decade as well, and I've had successful relationships that were happy, healthy, and there was communication and honesty. I think we're not used to it, even though people are out here doing it. Let's not act like there aren't people who have been out here having several partners, just not talking about it, not being honest about it. But people have been participating in polyamory for a long time. And I think the push now is for ethical polyamory, where you're actually open and honest about what you're doing. And you step into that, step into this is what I want, and find the folks who are interested and willing to have that type of a relationship with you.
Yeah. And I always think it's funny that people will take what they want out of different situations to kind of fit their own narrative. So it's like, you'll find someone who will say a part of the Bible, right? And they'll leave out other parts that kind of contradict what they're doing. So it's like, oh, you shouldn't do this. Yeah, but you shouldn't do this. So yeah, I think it's just about what fits for your lifestyle and, whoever's in your relationship, in your life, and you guys are all in the same consensus of this works, this doesn't, this what I'm about. Okay, this what I'm about. All right. And just not having any blurred lines.
Right. It's not simple. Don't get me wrong.
Course.
I'm not saying people out here
it
takes a lot to have a successful one, but it is possible.
Any kind of relationship.
Exactly.
I think even having a successful friendship nowadays is tough because there's so much going on, social media and this and that and expectations. Even dating. There's a thing now with the Cheesecake Factory. Think you heard about that?
No.
Yeah, about how some people think that it's not good enough for a first date.
Okay.
It's like, really?
Interesting.
Right, exactly.
They got so much food and it's pretty good.
You know what I'm saying? You got plenty of options.
Yes, you
do. But just the expectations, of I have to spend or I have to have these just enormous gestures to prove that I'm into somebody. And it's like, we're hurting ourselves doing that. You know what I mean? What happened to just being a good person? But I don't know.
Dating's a lot right now. You got all the dating apps, and they're their own situation. That's a whole other podcast situation.
Right.
But they're their own situation. And then just trying to find someone that you connect with, let alone, just one person, let alone several people, that are interested in the type of lifestyle that you want to live is difficult. And it is a lot of pressure. And I talk about that a lot with my clients, dating. A lot of folks are isolating because they don't even just know what to do with dating right now.
Now, with your clients, do you have athletes and people who have wanted to take a different approach than, the typical, let me go and get a whole bunch of Vicodin, or let me, this is what the coach prescribed, or this is what the athletes do. Do you work with people who might need help healing from, injuries or, torn ligaments or things that
I don't have a ton of athletes, but I have a few. I mostly have people who are dealing with autoimmune issues, and so I help support in that way. And a few athletes, and I have doctors, artists, so many folks that I see that have a variety of needs.
Wow, you as a doctor see other doctors.
I do. There's a lot of medical doctors who don't get taught the herbal stuff and who want to connect with it more and want to have conversations about how they can help support not only themselves and their family, but, the folks that they have coming in, wanting to change the Western medical model just a little bit to fit for what our people need.
Right. That's dope. I like that.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask you a question, and it's going to be pretty cliche, but I just want your open honest answer.
Okay.
Out of all of the things you do in your field, what is the most rewarding part?
I think the community healing, coming together with people and being in ritual, in some sort of practice, and connecting with our ancestors, bringing the holistic together.
Yes.
Being able to support people's bodies. Maybe we'll have tea at our events. Their minds, we'll talk about how to deal with anxiety or stress, and spirit, pouring libations and calling out our ancestors' names. Like having that whole experience with the community feels, I'm even starting to get some goosebumps. I think my ancestors are chilling with me right now, and they're it just feels so good to be in community with people, and that is healing. That act of being with our community is healing. And I think after COVID, and sometimes we kind of forget it because people be getting on our nerves and acting some kind of way, but I truly believe that community healing is the thing that's going to continue to push us forward. And I love that part of my job, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's with Niles Edge or in my private practice or connecting with other community groups. It's coming together to heal that's really important and feels amazing for me.
Because you're staying connected. Yep, stay connected.
That's right. Exactly.
That's right, yeah.
Exactly. You know.
Shameless
You know
plug.
what is good.
Well, doctor, before you leave, please let people know how they can get in touch with you if they want to know more, or, you know, just see what you have going on in your calendar.
Yeah. Folks, if you want to hit me up because you are interested in some therapy, or I'm doing holistic health consultations now, or if you need me to do some forensic work or workshops, whatever, you know, I'm open to helping. You can reach me at www.drkatrinasanford.com. That's where you can find most of the information on me. Shoot me an email. You can connect with me on my website to shoot me an email. I have a long email, so I'm not going to say it here, but you can find it. Also, Niles Edge Healing Arts, www.nilesedge.com. You know, come and check us out and see what we're doing in December 12th. We have our winter solstice event, our wind down event, so come and see us at Langston Hughes Performing Arts. Reach out to me, hit me up. I'm open to working within the community. I'm here, and I love the community here in Seattle so much that I stayed after my internship, and I'm down to help support in any way I can, so come see about me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Like that.
Thank you.
And you're the flyest dressed doctor I've ever met. No, I'm being honest. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Come on. That's a good. Okay. Okay. Show up. Don't hurt them. Don't. No, come on. Another episode. They're going to be like, man, got to step my game up. And she's a doctor. Well, I salute you, I'm about to say Katrina.
Thank you.
Dr. Katrina Sanford. I thank you for all of the information and just being so open, you know, about what you do, and just letting people know, hey, there's no shame in asking for help and just wanting to learn more, because you can never learn too much, right? You can never learn everything.
Forever a learner.
Yeah. So thank you so much for taking time. I'm glad we got to do this, man. We could have been here for another 5 hours and, you know, get literally kicked out of here, but it was awesome. Thank you so much. And I'll be talking to you very soon. You said you want to connect, and
yes,
I'll hold you to that word.
Appreciate you.
I'd like to see what's going on. So thank you so much. And I would like to thank you guys as well. Yes, for watching. And like I always say, it's important to take care of others, but please make sure you take time to take care of yourself. Until next time, stay connected. Peace.